Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, a returning guest. His name is John Brisson. Last name is spelled Brisson, and he operates the We've Read the Documents podcast and YouTube channel. And I'll put links to his show or his material in the show notes for this show. And I was just looking through my archives, and I think we've done 16 shows in total over time. So we've done a lot of great shows. Our last show was Is Amalek in the Room with Us? And that was very well received. A lot of people were interested in hearing him talk kind of about what's going on in Israel. It's actually kind of a timely topic, this kind of weird Old Testament outlook, because South Africa put in a criminal complaint to, I think it was the court in Belgium or somewhere around The Hague. And the response of the Israeli government was, this is a blood libel. Like they're using these terms that are really very dark, and the implications are really something else. Like they denied all the facts that were in this 84-page document that went to the ICC. So that's something you can check out. You can check out this Is Amalek in the Room with Us thing, as well as some of these other shows we've done. We've done interviews on QAnon, externalization of the hierarchy, Sound of Freedom, Alice Bailey, Peter Thiel, New Ager, Barbara Marks Hubbard. We've done the Council for National Policy, West Memphis 3, Michael Aquino. That was another one that a lot of people liked. But we've done a lot of different shows. So you can just kind of go back to my archives and maybe type in Brisson through Podcast Addict or something like that, or Spotify might be available. But I've had him on this show because of these kind of, Tucker Carlson has moved to X or Twitter, and it's just had a real impact. He's had millions and millions of listeners, much more so, I think, than he was registering when he was on Fox. And just some strange guests. And I just put up yesterday a post about his interview with Kevin Spacey and the use of the Tesseract. So I'll put a link to my Twitter. You should check that out. A lot of information. I got it from Sean of Wake the Dead podcast, taught me about the Tesseract, but I just saw that right there. A lot of people said that this pillow looked like a Masonic apron, but I don't think that's what it is. I do think it's a Tesseract. And I go in detail about that, but it also kind of was remarkable seeing that, because I had done this other post about this Masonic handshake between Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson, which at first blush for me, I was like, is this real? I don't know. So I kind of asked people, but I think it is real. Somebody did a close up. Yeah. So I think Jones is doing the pointing on Carlson's pulse or whatever, and Carlson's doing it right back to him. So it's kind of right in front of your face that this is a Masonic handshake. And everybody's always speculated about Jones being a Mason. I think maybe somebody proved it or something, like one of the headstones of his relatives was Masonic. But I think that this really plays it out, because Jones at the same time says to him, thank you, brother, right? So these are our leaders. These are our kind of alternative media leaders that people look to. Myself, I went through a Jones phase, heavy Jones phase, maybe after 9/11. But to see this kind of change, and the fact that he's even sitting with Kevin Spacey, I can do a whole show on Spacey. I put a lot of the dark, to me, clearly an occultist, esotericist. But to have him, for Carlson to have Spacey on his show, to me was revealing about Carlson. But John has done, I think he was telling me, he's done like 14 or 15 shows on Tucker. I haven't listened to them yet. I really need to catch up. But he's done 14 or 15 shows on the background of Tucker Carlson, this very important media figure in the United States. So I'm glad to have him back on the show. So John Brisson, welcome back.
Glad to be back, William, as always, brother. And I want to thank you for the vast amount of research that you've done too as well, and the various shows and interviews you've done and books too as well. And a happy Patreon subscriber to you as well. I want to put that out there. And I want to thank you for sending your book to me, for being a Patreon subscriber for a while too as well. So definitely going to plug that in for you.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, Carlson is someone who I myself once liked. I myself, when I had bought into the Cambridge Analytica, psychological, spiritual warfare 2016 election for Donald Trump, I started really watching Carlson. I'd watch him with my grandfather, and really thinking that he was for us, that he was an everyman, right? That he had been, he once was on CNN and MSNBC, but he always kind of had like a libertarian conservative bent, and hit Fox News was a better home for him, and he was saying a lot of truthful things, and I was like, okay, so I really at once admired Tucker Carlson almost as much as Alex Jones, and but then I start of course when I learned about the Council for National Policy and I learned about the secret right, as Josh Reeves would say, I started to realize, okay, what about Tucker? And so I started looking into Tucker. And I was like, wow, he's literally I forgot exactly which libertarian. I didn't fail to look it up. It's in my video. I'm sorry for not giving this person credit, but they interviewed Tucker Carlson, and Tucker was like saying, if you don't believe the conventional narrative about 9/11, if you believe some sort of alternative narrative that the government was involved or there were shenanigans involved with it, that you need to leave the country. You need to get out. And I was like, whoa, like, well, what? And so I started like really digging in, and realizing, okay, like he's connected, his dad's connected. His dad married the Swanson heiress, right? Which is, Tucker's full name actually is Tucker Swanson McNear Carson. Okay. So Tucker is he's got blue blood. Okay, like he went to Trinity College. We'll talk about all that. Just
Yale
like
Law School, Yale Law School, just
just like
like Hunter Biden.
we'll get to that. And
Yeah,
just like Anderson Vanderbilt or Anderson Cooper, that
right.
everybody likes to say he flunked out of the CIA, right, and became a news anchor. Well, so did Tucker. The CIA supposedly, allegedly didn't take Tucker. Okay. And his dad was like, well, you didn't make it into the CIA, so why don't you be a journalist like me?
Right.
So,
His
I
dad's
mean,
not CIA either. No way.
no, not
Yeah.
Dick Carlson, who George W. Bush, H.W. Bush had made an ambassador to the Seychelles Islands, as well as later him being the president of none other than Voice of America.
Voice of America, that's right. Yeah.
Which pushes propaganda, right? Which through the modernization of the Smith-Munn Act, which Obama didn't strike it down, have it struck down. He had it updated. Okay, that they're allowed to broadcast Voice of America propaganda to the United States, to its own citizens. Right, you can go listen to Voice of America now, or Voice of Asia, or Europe, or whatever. Radio Free Europe. You can go listen to that all on your own now. Where before Obama had that law changed and it was passed through Congress and signed by him, you could not. Okay. And in 2016, who did Voice of America push for the presidency? They pushed Donald Trump.
There you go.
Really should make you think.
Yeah, makes you think.
So Carlson also was involved too with King World Productions, right? He was a CEO of that. So they were a syndicator for Oprah, Wheel of Fortune, and Jeopardy, right? If you used to watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, you see King World Productions at the end of those shows, right? So he worked as a CEO for that. He was also CEO for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, okay, during the 90s. So Dick Carlson is someone who's in, and it's not like he's not, okay? So his dad is in, Tucker's in, okay? So, like I said, Dick Carlson married the Swanson heiress, the Swanson frozen food fortune. Okay. And so, Tucker went to Trinity College, to Yale, which are very expensive, Ivy League elite schools. Right. And in Trinity College, he met Neil Patel, who Neil Patel is the founder of the Daily Caller with Carlson, and the founding of the new Tucker News Network. Okay. He brought Neil Patel back for that. Okay, even though Tucker left the Daily Caller years ago, he brought him back. And Neil Patel, who's a Council for National Policy long-term member, was a advisor for Council for National Policy member and former Vice President of the United States of America, Dick Cheney.
Right.
Now, William, we were talking about this off air. When I found out this, I think it was from Robbie Martin. I think he was the one who shared it with me. I didn't know this, but it turns out that while they were at Trinity College in the I think it was early 90s, right, after the Iran-Contra affair and after the Nicaraguan Civil War, Tucker Carlson and Neil Patel, while they're at Trinity College, I believe it was Trinity College, they went down to Nicaragua to the Nicaraguan beaches.
Wonder why.
That's a little weird.
Right.
It's a little weird. And so, Tucker, he met David Brock. There was that whole group, Drudge, Brock, Tucker. They're kind of like the rising conservative stars of the late 1990s. Okay. So through Tucker's dad, he met David Brock, and Tucker became very good friends with David Brock. Okay. Who later dated James Alefantis, who owned Comet Pizza. Right. And there's two separate restaurant reviews. One posted in Washington Post in July 8th, 2007, and one posted in the New York Magazine in 2008 that both state that Tucker Carlson was a VIP regular to Comet Pizza.
Exactly. And if you're watching YouTube or Rockfin, you can see here's the direct quote. Among the VIP regulars are ballet director Septime Weber and talking head Tucker Carlson, and even Donald Rumsfeld dropped by for a pie.
So two separate restaurant reviews, 2 years, two different magazines mentioned Tucker Carlson's frequented at Comet Pizza. Okay. And he was friends with David Brock. I still think he is. I think the whole feud between Media Matters and Tucker Carlson is kayfabe. In wrestling terms, that means it's fake. It's scripted. True. Because most of the stuff that Media Matters has released about Tucker to most of the conservative audience, it'll make Tucker look good to them. Okay. And so I still think that, Tucker is still friendly with David Brock. And this was released around the time Pizzagate was really starting to investigate the right-wing connections to Pizzagate. And then once that started happening, you had the server shooting by Welch, and then the story disappeared. Okay, so right when most Pizzagate was left, and Clintons and Podestas and all that, but once the right wing was starting to come into focus, it was gone.
Gone, right. And there was also it was a pure kind of information warfare. There were fake stories like, oh, these guys think that there's kids being trafficked under the building, and somebody went down to find the basement, which there's no basement there, and all this other stuff. It was full information war against the real thing, which was really the Instagram pictures of Alefantis from Jimmy Comet were super sus. But yeah, Tucker's was in DC for 20 years. He's a DC player. There's no question about it. And friends with people across party lines. He's not so much of he's a country club kid too. He's one of those kind of secret, not secret society, but that's a whole nother story. But he's clearly in the kind of elite circles. I've seen pictures of him at different clubs throughout DC.
Well, how do you feel about Rachel Maddow, William? Are you a fan?
No, I can't stand her. She's horrible.
Well, guess who gave Rachel Maddow her first break?
Let me guess. Does his name start with a T?
It does. Yes, it was Tucker Carlson. Yes, at MSNBC. We wouldn't have Rachel Maddow if it wasn't for Tucker, who Rachel Maddow still defends Tucker. And Rachel Maddow, of course, would platform Patrick J. Buchanan, who was a Knight of Malta, long-term Council for National Policy member, in a segment called It's Pat, which was a playoff of the SNL Julia Sweeney It's Pat, where It's Pat looks like a fat version of Rachel Maddow.
Wow.
It's weird. I mean, that's a weird connection, but it's still weird. It really is. I don't know what really to think of that, but you have
it's almost like he's puppeteering people. Isn't that strange? Yeah. Like people that you wouldn't think he'd be in some kind of connection with, right?
Yes, like Rachel Maddow, for example, because he's both sides. He's in the middle. A lot of the most powerful people are. And so George H.W. Bush was a Council on Foreign Relations member, but also Council for National Policy member too, right? So you call him twofers. So Tucker would have a foot planted both in the left wing and in the right wing, and he would use it to his advantage, whatever he had to do. He's an inside guy. Okay. And so, I talked about how he wrote a piece in the and I got to thank Robbie Martin for bringing this to my attention too. He wrote a piece in the mid '90s burying Gary Webb, saying there was no proof to his allegations of, kind of like the Reagan administration and Freeway Rick Ross and the Iran Contra affair and drug trafficking, of Latin America and South America into Central America into the United States. The flow of cocaine to be turned into crack into the ghettos. That
It's
he
called
was,
Dark Alliance. With Dark
yeah,
Alliance was the series.
excellent book. And he would just completely just destroyed it in quotation marks. And Gary Webb's a sham, and he's a communist almost, I mean, just burying him. All right. And then we all know that, of course, that Webb, either commit suicide or was assassinated. I think he was assassinated, but if you take the angle that he did commit suicide, I mean, he was getting divorced or he was divorced. He had no outlet as far as he was blackballed from journalism, and stuff. So that could have
Right.
led to his suicide. I think he was assassinated, but it could have led to his suicide. If you're looking at it
He
that way.
had all kind of. He was in real deep trouble. There were people showing up at his house, and it really revealed just one segment of the American drug trade, which supposedly doesn't exist. But yeah. Webb got it right. He was absolutely right. It's all evidence. It's all facts. And a lot of the guys, you can go into and look at the MENA event where all that cocaine was being brought in, and a lot of those guys on the surface, they don't look like your standard drug dealer. They don't look like maybe some kind of Italian mafia guy or like a seedy guy with a big gold chain. They look like Tucker. They look like Tucker. That's like the real trick, is that a lot of these guys hang out at the nicest clubs because they have cocaine money. It's hard to believe, but it really is true.
Very true. And so I mean, with Tucker, I mean, where do I start? I mean, he practices the Kabbalah. You can see him still to this day, even though they're trying to say he's flirting with Christianity or Calvinist Christianity. You can see him wearing it on his left arm. It's still there almost every broadcast. I've done deep research where I believe that in the early 2000s, he interviewed frequently Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, who's an ardent Zionist, just someone who he really gets under my skin. But I think he might have been, and I show where I believe that he's Tucker Carlson. He's who brought him to understanding of, of looking into Kabbalah, right? And so, Tucker is a practicer of the Kabbalah. He's going around talking about the Bible, talking about Christianity, but yet he still continuously wears that Kabbalah bracelet. And so there's that. Tucker also pushes the false alien evasion narrative, right? Project Bluebeam, right? He's constantly pushing aliens, constantly pushing aliens. On Fox News, he was pushing aliens. He's still pushing aliens, on his show on X, and then so I mean he's still constantly pushing that. He's pushing
he also, one thing he pushes that people may not have keyed into is this kind of rugged backcountry guy who likes to do woodworking, but they caught him in like a woodworking studio and it was totally staged. Like people said, this guy has no idea what he's up to. Like somebody who actually does woodworking. It just was a photo shoot. It was part of his remaking his image as kind of like this guy in rural Maine who's out fishing and stuff like that. Like it's a good, legend, I guess, is way.
And isn't the photo of the picture that he's wearing kind of like trying to show like the everyman Tucker with the red shirt? Isn't what him show his Kabbalah bracelet right there with his hand put up to his head like that? Isn't that a Freemasonic pose?
Yes, I have the secret knowledge.
Yes.
I have the secret knowledge. And then that girl in the background is making the sign of silence. Like it's literally that bad. So it's all Masonic hand gestures.
And so
he's probably been to Bohemian Grove.
Oh, I mean, probably. And so Tucker Carlson also, we have the Daily Caller, which was funded primarily initially by former Council for National Policy President Foster Friess, who funded Turning Point USA, who funded Kanye shenanigans with Candace Owens and Ali Alexander. Ali Alexander was funded by Foster Friess, and so the CNP gave the money for the Daily Caller. pretty much.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And
wild.
so there's that. I mean, Tucker's not. I mean, you have where I have him on an interview saying, well, homosexual marriage is law of the land. So don't worry about that anymore. It's the real issue is transgenderism, and that's the real issue. Don't worry about homosexual marriage or anything like that. That's already been settled. You're crazy if you still think that's an issue. Worry only about the transgender issue. I have him saying that. So, I mean, and that's recently too, not just, in the past. Because a lot of people say, well, Tucker's waking up to all of this, John, like cut him a break. And I'm like, well, he's talking with Jones about 9/11 and he's still pushing the conventional narrative that, yeah, that's an inside job. But at the same time, they're still pushing, the Saudi Arabian involvement, of the hijackers, right? Like they're still pushing, but they're not mentioning like Mossad's heavily involvement in 9/11 or Russia's involvement in 9, like none of that. Like they're
Right.
like
Or the
it's like
DoD for the
yeah,
American Defense
not none of
Department.
it. It's like
Yeah.
base level. At least Jones used to occasionally bring these things up, but it's like base level. It's like here's the mainstream that the government had no involvement, right? Any government had any involvement in, right? And then theirs is like here. And then there's more people involved, right? It's crazy. And people still think that's Tucker waking up. So,
Right. I mean, that's the new thing. So I think they've reshaped him into kind of like the guy who got wronged by the system, like Fox fired me. But I think it's the right move. Like they know that the people who are thinking are done with corporate media, television
yeah.
media. They're only attracting, maybe not people who wanted good information. Like that's the only people who are watching it. So they engineer, or Tucker gets himself fired. The setup is done, and now he's in there, right there in the alternate media, right in the center of it, right
And he's
on
reaching
X.
more people than he ever did on Fox News.
Ever did. Tens of millions, 60 shows. And if people are watching on Rockfin, you can see this is somebody's having the Tucker. It says here, Tucker Carlson pretending to have a wood shop gave me a good
It's
chuckle
so
today.
fake.
Check it out,
It's
totally
so
fake.
fake.
Yeah.
And I mean, you had the guy that confronted him on his fishing trip, right? You remember that clip where the guy
No, what's that?
you might be able to find it. They confront Tucker. This guy gets belligerent when he's going fly fishing. The thing looks, and it finds out, you do research and it finds out that the guy was like an ex-agent that confronted him,
Oh,
an ex-government agent. The whole thing was staged. The whole thing was staged, you know? And I mean, Tucker's full Hollywood. What do you expect? I mean, it's ridiculous. He's a CIA Mockingbird agent. That's what he is. I saw Carl Hassel in the chat. Shout out to Carl. One thing that Carl wanted me to look into, and he was 100% right, is Tucker is a deadhead. But not only is he a deadhead, that he's gone to I don't know how many. I mean, like hundreds of Grateful Dead concerts. Okay, like so many. I did a show on this. He was touring with the Dead when he was in his late teens, William. And there's
like,
tons of allegations of Grateful Dead and drug trafficking.
Oh, no doubt, tons. There are drugs at every show, massive amount of drugs.
You might even be able to find the picture with Tucker Carlson when he's a teenager and Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, I'm getting it right now. 17. Yeah, he's like a chosen one or something. Like his whole career has been good. Like he's following the steps of his dad. Basically, in my opinion. There you go.
Come on. I mean, what am I supposed to say to that? It's like he's just a fan. That's all he is just a fan, William. He's just a fan of the Grateful Dead.
Right. Yeah, that's sus. Yeah, I've done all those shows on the Dead with what was it? Hans Uter. People can check those out. Really good. Shows that how smart they were, how much of a culture creator, knowledgeable culture creator they were, and how they really encourage those people to follow them around, give them their money, and do drugs the whole time. It's all by design. It's really hard to believe. It wasn't like some kind of natural event at all. It was all encouraged by the Dead.
Yeah, you're right. And then you know Jack Abramoff is, don't you?
Yes, I remember the story of Jack Abramoff. He was like, he was in, was it around the Clinton era? And he was involved in Florida
The
boat
Sun Cruise
casinos.
casinos.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he ripped off the, Native America tribes down there and
yeah, that's
everything,
right. Yeah.
and then me and George were looking to in a show that we never did, that he was like a lobbyist to reduce, restrictions on workers' rights in the in the, Mariana Islands, and there
Hmm.
was a thing supposedly where in the Mariana Islands, there was kind of like an Epstein blackmail ring that was going there that the CMP was running,
Wow.
and Abramoff was a part of that, and they had blackmailed one of the representatives. I'd have to go back and look. It was one of the representatives that was against Trump, who was a black representative. They blackmailed him.
Oh, wow.
But there, yeah, but so Tucker claims he's never met Abramoff, but I have a video where Tucker's at Abramoff's house with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, who also defended Abramoff because Abramoff is an
Wow.
Zionist, okay? Where he's
Wow.
literally giving a toast to Abramoff, saying how much of a
Incredible.
good guy he is.
No, Abramoff was dirty. There was a couple deaths associated with the boating thing. If I remember, somebody got assassinated. Like I think that like it was bad, like it was covered up. But yeah, but
And
yeah,
then,
there's like
uh,
there was a news story like from 3 days ago that there's a sex ring in Boston and DC was a honeypot scheme by Russia, China, South Korea, or even Israel to ensnare U.S. officials. So these are still out there. This is a story I'm just reading of, like Fairfax,
how
Virginia.
many that we don't know?
Right. Well, that's a great point. Like all this stuff on Epstein is back in the news, but how many other Epsteins are there, right? I think there's just an industrial. Epstein was really an industrial blackmailer, but there's probably other people involved in that. I mean, it's off the charts. They want their
So
thumb on everybody, dude.
that
They
is
want the
true, yeah, and they don't want nobody to talk about it, which is why you're not
right.
hearing really about Jeffrey Epstein's vast connections to Israel and the Mossad, right?
Yeah. Oh,
They'll mention
that's
Ehud
obvious.
Barak, but then they'll leave it at that. You know, the Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's vast connections to Israel and
Oh,
Mossad.
off the charts, off the charts. Yeah, these guys are all they're all they all go back to Israel. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I could tell you story. I'm not even that big of like a media figure, but they went through every one of my episodes, maybe when I was about 950 to try to find something. I know they did it. I know somebody in with power, with like deep state or something like that, tried to get something on me. They couldn't find anything. I didn't use any f bombs. I didn't say bad words like Joe Rogan did. Where they found on, they tried to get Joe Rogan under their thumb too. There's no
Yeah,
question about it.
yeah, very much so. Which I mean, with Rogan, they have. He talked about one time
Yes.
going to an Eyes Wide Shut party with Dave Chappelle at Naomi Campbell and Vladislav Doronen's estate, where we know that Naomi Campbell and Vladislav Doronen were directly in the Epstein nexus.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a picture of Naomi Campbell and Virginia Giuffre in France with Epstein and Maxwell. It's off
And,
the charts. So
and there's a
it's
picture of
these things.
Naomi Campbell with Trump and Melania, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that Ghislaine Maxwell, if the real story of her, she's like on par with Mata Hari, like one of the great spies of all time.
Had to have been.
Really, yeah.
Had to have been.
Really one
And then the
people who
biggest
know.
thing that we talked about off air, well, the biggest thing to have realized to tell people that Tucker Carlson's not our guy and he's all in on it, is his long-term friendship with Hunter Biden.
Right.
And so, right here, just some of the headlines, but I did a show on it. Is there was an email exchange between that Carlson intervened on Hunter's behalf about trying to strike him from the record about the Ashley Madison leaks, that Hunter was in those leaks. And so Carlson intervened to the Daily Mail to try to get them to remove that information.
Interesting. So he's
And
covering
then,
up for Biden. I
yep,
mean, Hunter is totally corrupt.
and then Hunter wrote and there's a 2014 interview where Hunter wrote a recommendation letter for Tucker's son to Georgetown University.
Interesting.
And then
Right. So they're
emails
friends. He
they've
says he's friends with them, right?
yeah, interviews and emails that they've had dinners with each other. And remember when all the information was coming out about Hunter Biden during the election, the 2020 election, I have Carlson literally going, pretty much leave him alone. He's a man going through drug addiction. Leave him alone. That he's a troubled man, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a lot more there. I'd be trouble too if I was like spending $1 million on prostitutes and getting weird funds throughout almost everything. The way that the Biden family has like almost parasited off the federal government is astonishing. People would be
Yeah.
incredible because every policy decision, they have a little stake in everything because they know where the money flows are going. So like their front companies or shell company, they're from Delaware, right? The home
Mhm.
of the shell company. They have like little piece. They get a little dip their beak, so to speak, in almost every like policy decision. So they're like total insiders. It's off the charts, and then Tucker's okay with that. That's the whole thing. Is like he's not exposing that. The fact that he has selective exposures of certain things tells you a lot.
Yeah, and so to go back, the shock jock that Tucker had an interview with was Bubba the Love Sponge. It was not Mad Cow. And so when he's talking about Warren Jeffs, he says that the criminal charges against Warren Jeffs are bullcrap, and arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as just pulling a stranger off the street and raping her.
Ooh, rough. And that guy was involved in all kinds of gnarly stuff, trafficking, child rape. Like, wasn't he convicted of all that stuff?
Yeah, he was a cult leader. Yeah, he went to jail.
Yeah.
He went to prison. So I mean, oof.
Yeah, Tucker's. I mean, it's incredible to see this guy like leave corporate media and then kind of go on to X and do all this stuff. It's off the charts. I mean, even this interview he had with Spacey is like, if you know Spacey, it's chilling. Like he's to me, he's covering for like he thinks it's funny. He's deliberately involved in the blurring of fiction and reality. Tucker Carlson is, instead of being an objective, kind of dry, analytical journalist. He's like involved in these stories, the Rush story, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much so. He's almost like a chaos warlock, doing chaos magic, and he kind of reminds me almost of a lot of ways of like the Joker off of Batman to some degree. Like he's playing that type of role, right? Where I mean, it's just I don't know. He just reminds me of that, and you know, he through him being on X and doing interviews on X, he's interviewed Russell Brand
Right.
and pushed new age beliefs through that with Russell Brand and getting people to go on watch Russell Brand on Rumble. And then you have the allegations against Russell Brand, right? Which I believe are likely to be true. And then you have
No, that's a hit piece. The guy's having way too much influence. It comes out at the right time, like he's at his peak. And those are not. They're not even. They're just speculative. There's nothing in court. So it's almost like we have an anonymous person who said this. I mean, I don't think the guy. I mean, he was into Crowley. It seems like he was into Crowley.
Well, there was allegations of Russell Brand defending Jimmy Civil. Like there's actual true. Like the thing is there's true stuff with Brand. But instead, that gets whitewashed with those allegations. You understand what I'm saying? So it's almost like controlled releases to do that to him. Because if you actually looked, like Brandon said some weird things with the whole Seville ring and stuff like that and everything, and knowing Seville and Seville and Brand sharing ladies. So like there's stuff there, but you don't hear that you don't hear. It's the same with Epstein. It's how much will we never know, William? Because what they release is controlled.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. There's a lot more to going on to the whole Epstein situation than the public knows. But yeah, I mean, I think Brand is an example of the total character assassination. They're not going to, kill him, but they wanted to take him down a notch. He's having too much. The guy has a huge following on YouTube alone, let alone Rumble. So anybody in alternative media is a target, as far as I'm concerned, because the old ways aren't working on the public like they used to. And I think that the old elites, like Tucker Carlson represents, are very nervous because they don't like people actually asking real questions and wanting to have real analysis. Or I mean,
Well, Steve Bannon's the same way. And no one ever asked Steve Bannon the right questions. Like no one ever asked Tucker Carlson. I mean, I'll say the Libertarian interviewer did, but no one like who asked. But then again, with Russell Brand, there were things that I would ask him. So like who like with all the with whether it's the new media or the old media, um, no one ever asks them pointed, targeted questions.
Right.
And does Tucker
No.
Carlson ever really true like when he interviewed Mark Epstein? It seemed like he was platforming Mark Epstein.
Yes, it sure did. It did, didn't it?
So
why do you
that's
think he
weird.
did that? Yeah, very weird.
Because
Like he
I
has a
think
personal friendship with Mark Epstein, according to Tucker.
that's
right?
true. Yes, he even stated as such. So I mean, that's odd. Hunter Biden, Mark Epstein, like where does it end?
It's almost too like like you say, like he's a gatekeeper too. Like he's not really going to the crux of this. Like he didn't get Mark Epstein on. He asked him about what happened to his brother, but she should have asked him, "Have you trafficked women?" Like he didn't do that
Yeah.
because Mark Epstein was known to have an apartment or some kind of arrangement where some of these girls were at, and so Tucker doesn't ask that question. Rogan did the same thing. Rogan literally had Epstein's chef on his show and spent like 2 hours talking about cooking. When he said, "What was it?" He should have asked him, "What was it like living and working for Jeffrey Epstein?" Like one of the most important questions you could have ever asked. What was he like in person? What did you see there? Never. Rogan never asked it. I was like chomping at the bit. Like, what are you doing? And that also felt like a cover up. Like it felt like, and I mean, we can go into West Memphis 3 and all of Rogan's friends and all that stuff. But
Well, with Mark Epstein, it's like, it comes out in the news media last week that he says that the 2016 election wouldn't happen if all the evidence came out, Epstein had against Trump and Clinton. And that gets buried. And so does Tucker Carlson really discuss Donald Trump's connections? Mark Epstein and flew together with Trump on the Lead Express, right? So did he ask
right.
about that? Was there any? No, there was none of that. None of that was asked.
Right. I mean, I think Trump was, I mean, we know like his affection for porn stars, right? Or two erotic pictures of these two women or whatever. Like, what else is there? Like, those are the ones that came forward. Wasn't that Cohen guy his lousy lawyer? Like, what else does that guy know? I don't know if he's divulged everything. Maybe it's all under like NDA or something like that.
Not talking about you're talking about
What was the two girls? One was like a Playboy playmate, and the other one was that one he called Horseface. Trump called Horseface. But those are, I think, just the tip of the iceberg, right?
of course, you had the Russian modeling agency, right?
Yeah,
And allegations dealing with that. And who was you're talking about
I can't remember their names right now. I don't know what her real name is. She had like a porn star name. I remember her face.
Oh, Stormy Daniels?
Stormy Daniels, yeah.
And then you had
Playmate.
the lawyer for Trump. You talking about Michael Cohen?
Yeah, Cohen, yeah. Karen McDougal. He had that relationship with Karen McDougal.
So I mean, it's obvious, but they're all covering for Trump, right?
Yeah, they're covering for him, yeah.
In some fashion.
I mean, it has to be some kind of tit for tat arrangement. Like you cover for me, I give you some kind of benefit. I think that there's something like that going on with the whole Trump situation. That's my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. Look up something real quick. There's something.
What do you think? What do you think it like is on the horizon for Carlson? Like he's drawing huge numbers, like Rogan numbers, actually. Like what? I guess he'll just stay on X, huh?
No, I believe the possibility might be true that if it is true of what they were floating around in the Axios report, that Donald Trump might nominate him for vice president.
Wow, that would be incredible.
Because he's in like Pence, but people are not going to think he's in. So why wouldn't you make him vice president?
Why not? And this is the interview that he did with Spacey, where there's literally a tesseract right there, and then Anti-Tate writes he used the same cup when he was talking about the allegations of his accuser that was found dead before the trial of Stacey's CP. So it's almost like he's putting his murders in people's face. Like that's how there's so many layers to this interview with Carlson. This is like one of the more shocking, disturbing things that I've ever seen and I'm not exaggerating.
No, it's
Because
not.
and in that Tesseract, you can go to. I'll put a link to this Twitter feed that I did, where the Tesseract pops up in Rosemary's Baby and in Eyes Wide Shut, and here it is. Like over Christmas, it's almost like the Eyes Wide Shut motif, where they have these Christmas trees, but they don't say anything about Jesus or the holiday or anything. It's just a sterile, dead decoration. So like the subtext, the meta text, the undercurrent is Eyes Wide Shut. Like it's just off the charts.
It wasn't I have to go back and look, but wasn't Tucker's Twitter blurb before, wasn't it like election day surprise or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, because this is the new president, right? Is they're going to put whatever Underwood or whatever his name in the show was, House of Cards. But yeah, this is like him platforming Spacey is like platforming Savile. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I'm not
And then,
exaggerating.
and then him not asking him anything about Epstein, right? Like nothing. Like there was nothing.
And let me see. I mean, let me see if I can find that. We talked in the pre-show the picture of Spacey with Maxwell sitting on the Queen's chairs, right?
Yeah.
So like this is it's so crazy.
And the
This
way
whole
the way
interview is freaking crazy.
the way Spacey frames the narrative is that he's been persecuted. He's done nothing wrong at all. The whole
Right.
interview is how the media's framed him.
It's so crazy. We're in such
It's
a
got to
crazy
be some sort
environment.
of like humiliation, initiation, something. Like it is to the masses I'm talking about, not to those guys. It's the weirdest, one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's without a doubt one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I mean, and here's this is the whole Epstein. It's not going away. Where is this? Let me see if I can find this. There's Spacey with Maxwell now in jail, right? Literal Mata Hari. Like I think that she's like one of the greatest spies that ever lived. She literally is.
So you have Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, and Bill Clinton together, right? On trips on the Elite Express, a trip to Africa, if I remember
Africa,
correctly.
that's right. That's right.
And then try to think if there's anything else. I know Tucker's interviewed Roseanne Barr and platform Roseanne Barr, right? And she practices the Kabbalah. I call her America's Talmudic grandmother. But Roseanne Barr is a big pusher of the QAnon operation as well, too, and Donald Trump and everything. So,
yeah, no, and Spacey, like he was with Clinton going way back. So even the House of Cards is a blurring of fiction and reality.
That's true.
He's
yes.
literally playing Clinton. He's best friends with Clinton. And I think his friendship with Clinton goes back to the 90s. Like I think that they've been friends for decades. And I showed this one video on my thread in Twitter, which is this video they shot, which is called I think the Final Days or something like that. But it's like almost like a sinister Hell House or something like that. Everybody who pops up has got some kind of sinister thing. It's Spacey, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, and Al Gore. Like climate hustler Al Gore pops in, who was in these most recent Epstein documents. Like they said that he had first person knowledge of something. Yeah. Like I don't know what that means, but yeah, you got to watch. If people are listening to this, you got to go, and you can actually see it. I think it's still on YouTube. It's called.
No, it's Final I was gonna say the Kevin Spacey thing. I definitely watch it because I don't know how long it's actually going to be up because it just gives away, like how like. I don't know what purpose it serves because it outs Tucker to anybody who can. Is it people's discernment is so poor?
Yeah, William? I think that's in your face. It's just another insider in your face fun thing. He has to know everything about Spacey, being somebody who's been in DC. People who don't, I've been in DC for 3 years. It is the most gossip-centered place, worse than Hollywood. Everybody wants to know everything in detail about everybody else, especially like blackmail, but also just like that's part of the survival is like this huge information exchange or just garnering information over drinks or things like that. So Tucker has to know Spacey. He's got to know all the stuff in his relationship to Clinton. So it just makes you, for me, looks like Tucker's even more of a servitor of the elite, really trying to present himself as a man of the people. And you're going to get limited this kind of limited hangout. Well, he'll do real journalism on certain subjects, and then hide the golden eggs on other subjects like the Epstein and not ask these questions.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, did Tucker visit the island?
Good question. I know Spacey was on the logs, right? Wasn't Spacey on the logs? I'm pretty sure. Have you heard that?
I think so. Yes, I believe so. I know that he was on the flight logs. I know that.
Yeah.
He was. And you know, something we always, you know, discuss is, you know, there was the Teterboro Airport, right? There was Atlantic City. There was the Lex Wexner New York City mansion. There was West Palm Beach estate. There was the New Mexico Zorro Ranch, right? Like,
right.
Just because someone didn't go to Epstein Little St. James Island doesn't mean there's always greater than Lolita Express and Little St. James. It was a worldwide operation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's Spacey. There he is, Spacey, Trump, Gates, and Clinton. It's really incredible. He puts Spacey on his show and doesn't ask him about Epstein right when these new documents are dropping. It's just, he's covering it up, man. It's off the charts.
And then Mark Epstein, and it's just the whole. And then we, you know, Megyn Kelly comes out, right? It makes it seem like, is Epstein alive? Is Epstein going to all of a sudden appear? Like, imagine, like, I think it's going to be Bannon's documentary, you know, which is going to be a whitewashing Trump, make it seem like he hasn't had any involvement. But my guess is what if, I mean, how insane with 2024 and everything going on? We have the externalization of hierarchy in 2025, allegedly by Alice Bailey, right? And you have the switch to the phony Great Awakening. How, and I know it sounds crazy, like if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have given it a 1% chance, but now I'm giving it about a 15% chance that all of a sudden they bring out Jeffrey Epstein and they're like, White Hat saved him and now he's going to spill the beans. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but after all the document leaks and everything and the whitewashing that Trump has any involvement in Epstein, and Megyn Kelly literally saying that, and then Mark Epstein in the interview with Tucker being like, well, he was murdered, but also leaving out, you know, discussing information that it might be likely that he's still alive. It's like, what is going on here?
What is going on? Who's in control? Like, what is going on? Oh, it's so crazy. This is the crazy. It's going to be the craziest year. Like, well, you and I are going to be busy. We're going to be busy. Yeah, I mean, so supposing we survive, we're going to be so busy this year. Oh my God. But yeah, I think that looking at that Tucker Spacey interview, it is the strangest thing. It's got to be in the top 10 of the strangest interviews, replete with like sinister undertones and just outright evil that I've
like they
really
could have put like horror movie music behind it to build tension during the whole interview, right? Like, it's like they didn't, but they could have easily just done it because of how weird it is. Like, it's so off. It was like when like you mentioned earlier with the cup, when Spacey did that kind of like YouTube video or whatever, you know, it was ominous then, right? You know, like if anybody watched that, how could they think that Spacey isn't some sort of, you know, likely murderer, pedophile or whatever? Like you look at him like there's something wrong with this guy. He's like, there's something, he's not acting. This is him. That's
him. No, have you heard have you read about Spacey on Crazy Days and Nights?
No, I think you're talking about a little bit off air, but
yeah, we can talk. Yeah, that'll scare the living daylights out of you. It's totally crazy the stuff that he's up to. I think he's an occultist, like all that albino alligator stuff and the dark references and all that stuff. He's operating on different planes of understanding. That, you know, it's not just the surface. There's something else under the surface with that guy that's off the charts. Yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah, which Bacon Toast said the interview was 7 minutes and 6 seconds long, which is 6 minutes and 66 seconds. Oof.
Yeah, yikes.
Oof. I mean,
yeah.
So let's say this. Let's finish up with this. Where do you think Tucker's going to go for the rest of the year? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think's going to like? Do you think Trump nominates him for vice president? Who does he interview? Like, who could he interview now to make it even more like, you know, like, I know he's definitely going to push more of the false alien invasion stuff because that seems like what they're going to go for. But like, where do you see it? Like, do you got?
I think that he'll try to interview Trump. I think Trump will come on, just like Trump went on Jones back in 2020 or something like that.
And Michael
Savage, I think Jones and Tucker will
interview Trump in 2016, 15. So
Who did?
Michael Savage,
Jones?
Michael Weiner.
Oh, Savage. So I think Tucker will do that. I think you're right about the UFO thing, and I think that he'll be a gatekeeper for Epstein and not actually name names, and then kind of keep up with his kind of conservative, facade.
Does he interview George Santos?
He should. Santos is really an impressive guy. Like, I think that he was one of the best con men to make it all the way to House of Congress that I've ever seen.
He's making more money on cameos, allegedly, supposedly, than he did in office. The man is a complete he's a degenerate.
Yeah, no, he's terrible. He's terrible. He spent a lot of his campaign funds on, I think, OnlyFans, like thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, the brazenness, like these other guys, like, they try to cover stuff up, but like he's just out there. Like he was like said he was part Jewish. He like just was like almost like Bill Clinton, where he would say different things to different people to get their support. Like he was willing to do it. Are you Jewish? Yeah, I'm part Jewish. Okay, you got my vote. And then he'd go off to, yeah, I'm a Latino and I'm gay too, but I'm not gay. Like, I don't even know what he was. But like as far as a politician, man, like he was something else. Crazy. But yeah, so I think Tucker, George Santos makes sense. Maybe even Gates.
Gates, yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, probably Jones. Didn't you have Jones on yet? I was supposed
he already had Jones, yeah.
So what do you think? What's on the horizon?
Pretty much everybody you named. I don't really think, because I mean, I will say this: Kevin Spacey caught me by complete surprise. Mark Epstein, not so much. Kevin Spacey, I was like, what? So
yeah.
I'm trying to think of any like curveball people that he could interview to make me go, why is like why like someone like Kevin Spacey, and I'm really drawing a blank. Like, does he interview? Hold on, I'll look up something real quick. Could he interview? Okay. Could he interview Harvey Weinstein?
That would be interesting. But would he ask the right questions? Like, I don't know. Weinstein. Who else could he?
I don't think he would. I think he would cover for Weinstein, wouldn't he?
I don't know. Wasn't he supposed to go talk to Assange? Didn't he fly out there?
That's true.
I don't know if that's been published.
So that interview is probably going to come out, right?
Yeah, I assume.
That's an election surprise.
Yeah, and he did the guy from Hungary, right? I forgot what his name was. Like that's the interesting thing is his access is off the charts. What's that?
Viktor Orban?
Yeah, Orban, yeah.
He interviews Vladimir Putin.
That would be interesting.
He interviews Bibi Netanyahu, even though I think Bibi Netanyahu's going to be removed from prime minister. I could see him interviewing Bibi.
I could too.
He interviews Prince Andrew.
That would be interesting. How about the king? How about King Charles III?
I think that's too much. Maybe. Maybe. But Prince Andrew, I definitely could see him doing that, right? He interviews Ghislaine Maxwell from prison.
That would be cool. That would be interesting.
Because he's in with Mark, right?
Yeah. Right. That's his connection. Yeah, he didn't ask Mark any questions that would get him criminally exposed. That's for sure.
No. Yeah, maybe Ghislaine comes out and says that she was put up to it because she's tried to play that angle, right? If I remember correctly, right? And and then she talks about that Trump's not in on it. My guess is, if I had one thing, I'll say this: there'll be more information that comes out against Trump that he was involved with Epstein, but it's going to be buried and covered by so much psychographical and psychological warfare, making it seem like he had no involvement. That's my guess of this coming year. And Tucker Carlson's going to play a major role in that. He already has.
He's already doing it, yeah. I mean, what's your prediction for 2024? Just in general, outside
Trump gets elected, I think.
Do you think they'll try to steal it again, or they'll let it?
No.
So no steal, real election. He gets back into office.
Mm-hmm. Because right now they're even running the narrative, even on conservative, that the polls are swinging so much in his favor that they couldn't rig it.
They couldn't rig it.
Now, maybe something happens. Maybe another pandemic happens. Maybe World War III happens. And then I'll say this. Trump will be back in power of the United States of America, whatever that may be, within 2 years.
Interesting. Yeah, I think they'll try everything they can to keep him out. I mean, I think that the likelihood of assassination for me is 33%. They really try to kill him. I think so. I think that's their way out because there's nobody in the wings. If Trump goes down, it's there's nobody to fill that spot, right? There's just nobody. And maybe he's planned it that way. It's like there's nobody else. I mean, Pence is a joke, and
well, I think they want Trump. I think, and actually, I'd go even further to say that I believe that Trump might be the Antichrist, which there's a lot of people who have covered that, like Donnie Darkened on Twitter. He's got a pretty big following.
What's the evidence?
Oh, I mean, you want to do a show on it? I mean,
I guess why not?
I mean,
I had somebody say Prince Charles III is the Antichrist.
I know, and he's on my short list. I don't think
milking a cup of tea or something. His book.
He is on my short list, but there was a guy who wrote a book. I'd have to get in 2015 that Trump was the Antichrist, and that Trump would be elected for president, and it happened. So that was the guy who put forth the original theory of it. And I'd say there's more evidence, in my opinion, of Trump than Elon Musk, than Charles, than Putin, than Erdogan, than Obama, than any of them. I put him at the top of my short list. But I mean, yeah, I'd actually try to have Donnie Darkened on. If not, I would do it.
Well, maybe you should both come back on and tell me why you think that's the case. Okay. I don't know. I kind of don't see him as the Antichrist. I don't see him with the kind of dark occult kind of like statements. He's more just for me, more self-aggrandizing.
But that's how the Council for National Policy through Tim LaHaye did through what was that book, Left Behind, disarmed Christians into thinking the Antichrist is going to have like that persona. But from the Bible, the Antichrist isn't loved by the world until after he's resurrected.
Interesting.
So it's farther along. So, and Trump he hasn't made like dark statements, but he's made what we would consider to be the love and light side, the great awakening side, the externalization, the hierarchy side. He's made numerous statements in that regard. So much so that he said that he's the savior of Western civilization. And now there was a recent Dilley video, Brandon Dilley through Fifth Generational Warfare, where in that video it stated, and Trump didn't say it, but he pinned it to the top of his True Social, that he is the good shepherd.
Wow. So he's kind of standing in the place of Jesus. Yeah, that's.
Oh, there's so much evidence of that. Now, whether or not he's like the forerunner to the Antichrist or not, I don't know. He might be, and he might not be the true Antichrist, but they're running with that narrative. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll try to get Donnie Darkened on. He can present his case.
Yeah. John, where can people find your more recent shows on Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, you can find me. We read the documents on Odyssey, on YouTube, Committed to Thy Trust Ministries. We've read the documents on Substack. We've read the documents on Twitter. We've read on Gorf Social. And definitely thank you for having me back on, William. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for all the fine research that you do, brother. And it's just, don't trust any of the like with Tucker. If his books was Amazon bestseller, Jordan Peterson books are Amazon bestseller, like, if they're pushing them in the way, Sound of Freedom is one last thing. I guess one last final thing to say. Sound of Freedom was free to watch on Amazon Prime right before Christmas.
Interesting. Because they're pushing it, right?
Yeah.
They're all pushing those things. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy out there. A lot of these guys are like, they're Pied Pipers, man. They're fake Pied Pipers. I think that Tucker really, the mask is off for me. The most recent stuff for me is just like, this guy is just, he's just changed kind of the kind of theatrics and staging, but he's still the same for me. But I'll put links to your stuff in the show notes. And then your podcast is, we've read the documents in Substack too, right?
Yes, it's on Substack. I do Buy Their Fruits with Jeremy Stone. You've been on before. It's more Christian focused, but yes, my podcast is, we read the documents. It's on Substack as well too. Yes.
Right on. And so check that out. And today's was title is "Are You a Sucker for Tucker?"
It's a great title. It's a great title.
All right, I do work. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
God bless. God bless. Stay there. All right, he's out.